from colleagues. Friday report out agenda. We've got a fairly packed agenda, if you can see the slide, so we're going to have to race through. But just before we do that, I'd just like to really remind everybody where Leeds improvement methodology fits into what we do as an organisation. And you all get fed up with me talking about this, but I'll carry on doing it. So the blue triangle, the strategic triangle, we've got one word at the top, patient. That's what this is all about. So our why in all this is the patients, the population that we serve, the citizens that we represent. Please don't forget that as we go through. We've got our vision to be the best provider for specialised and integrated care. We've got that green bit, our strategic priorities for the next 5 years. We've got the Leeds way values, as that's how we do things, and we use the Leeds improvement methodology to bring it all together. And these 4 reports will exemplify that golden thread right the way through about our patients. Just quickly, fabulous presentation. Sorry, Chaman. Fabulous presentation. We'll do questions at the end. Hit so many bases. Kath, thank you all the team. Chaman, you're on. Sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay. Hello, my name's Chuman and I'm the Medical Device Safety Officer in Clinical Engineering. So my project was on the availability of infusion devices. So the aim was to determine if the availability can be increased by improving communication between the equipment pool at St. James and the clinical areas which they supply equipment to. Next slide, please. So when an infusion device, so specifically an infusomat, is required by a clinical area, they'll contact the equipment pool because these devices are issued on a loan system. So the device should be supplied straight away. However, we're seeing an ongoing issue where the devices are not available, so they cannot be supplied. So we think this is down to 3 main reasons. So all pumps are being used in clinical areas. Pumps are in clinical engineering waiting to be repaired or serviced. Or clinical areas have kept pumps after use, and this restricts our stock. So the 7 commitments I think this project falls under is resources. So the devices are a piece of equipment that needs to be worked on. Quality, top 25% for patient experience care, supporting patients to get home a day sooner, and finance, cost planning when commissioning new areas. Next slide, please. So the actions undertaken were, we walked through the clinical areas to see if we could locate any unused pumps. So these could be by the bedside, but not on a patient, or just in like cupboards and storage areas. So we asked the infusion device trainers to remind staff to return pumps after they've used them. So as part of their training, we've sent out a few trust-wide communication from emails, asking staff to check for unused pumps, and if so, to return them to equipment pool. I spent some time in equipment pool, so I got a feel for how often these pumps are requested, which wards request them the most, and if there's like a specific time of the day where they needed more. We've created a poster that we are planning on putting on the screensavers, but that's just going through the approval process at the moment. We also communicated with clinical staff, so we asked them why the pumps hadn't been returned after use, what prevents them from returning the pumps, and if there are enough pumps for them to run their services adequately. So the Leeds improvement method tools utilised in this were Gemba walks, direct observations, and mental valleys. Next slide, please. So what we found was that some clinical areas had infusion pumps that were not being used. So these were either stored or just left there, not attached to any patient. And we found that the demand for pumps has significantly improved. We've got data to show this. However, the number of infusion pumps remains the same. We've also got giving set usage. So by looking at this data, we can correlate it to infusion demand. And there's also been a significant increase in this data. So more pumps will be required to run the service adequately. And some clinical areas, such as the oncology day units and ICU, they just keep the pumps, so they don't use the loan system. The pumps are just constantly kept there. So we could look into seeing if they could have their own set of pumps away from the equipment pool loan system. So in terms of project metrics, I don't think we've been looking at the data long enough to see an improvement yet, but we will continue to track this data. Next slide, please. So this graph, so the blue bars show the number of Infusion infusions per month for the last year, and the red at the bottom is the number of Infusion pumps. So the pump number remains consistent, but we can see the number of infusions vary. So over the winter months it increases, and the green bar is the number of loan requests fulfilled. So this is the data we're going to carry on tracking every month, and then once we've got more months and years, we'll be able to see a bigger picture. Next slide, please. This is the giving set data, so we can see that this has increased, and by looking at this overall, we do know that if giving set usage is increased, then more infusions are given, so infusions are also increased. Next slide, please. So what went well? We opened conversations with clinical staff. We visited the clinical areas. It gave us an idea of which areas use more pumps, which areas should have their own pumps. And we understood from both the equipment pool and the clinical area perspectives. Next slide, please. So key learning and what we would do differently. So this was specifically St. James. So we'd also look at LGI in the future for site comparison, gather staff feedback on equipment usage and return practices, and identify barriers to returning devices. So we know that infusion devices are critical and widely used across all clinical areas. So high use areas such as oncology, day unit, critical care should have dedicated devices, and timely availability impacts patient care quality. So for the next steps, like I said before, we're just going to carry on collecting the data over the months and years, and then looking at LGI and exploring permanent allocation for high demand units.
Chaman, thank you.
And this is the poster we've created that we are just reviewing at the moment.
Thank you, Chaman. Great presentation. Sneaky little things that get everywhere.
Thank
really
you.
Well done. I look forward to hearing about the data later on when you've carried on a bit longer. Louisa, you're on.
Hello, thank you. My name's Louisa. I work in adult critical care. My report is looking at the incidence of Cat2 pressure ulcers on J821 and our assistance in reducing those. I do have a stutter, so if I get stuck on a word, please just bear with me. Next slide, please. So in winter 2024, adult crit care, we saw a huge increase of specifically Cat2 pressure ulcers to patients' nostrils, either by the NG tube or the fixation device. We had 12 to be exact. And on J821, we contributed to these figures because we had 5 months of no Cat2s, and then in this winter period, we had 5 consecutive months of Cat2 pressure ulcers to nostrils. So big questions. Why was this? Was it a fixation device issue? It was over winter. We had a huge staff bank usage. So not familiar with kind of our care bundles and the devices that we use. We had a huge new staff intake to crit care at this time, and was an education injection needed of a full recap for staff. And this links into the 7 commitments from the care category. Next slide, please. So the LIM tool I used was a PDSA. I also did observations, and we did Gemba walks. So obviously a huge action was needed, and there was a huge resourcing project done by our ACC quality practitioners. So they've done the huge kind of sourcing and project from that side of things, but I was involved in the J821 rollout of the new NG fixation device with myself and the TVN team on J821. The photo of me on the left hand side shows that the new fixation was transparent, so you can see the nostril really easily versus the old device top right, which is kind of like the old kind of like plaster material where the nostril is not visible So I was part of the rollout, like I said, and these are the changes that we made. So we removed the standalone old fixators from storerooms, added the new ones to the bedside trolleys on J821. We were obsessed with doing NG Gemba walks, checking nostrils on a daily basis, on ward rounds, at huddles. And it was a huge push by the J821 TVN team to kind of input this new device. And it took a while, you'll see on my next slide, but it took a while for our actions to kind of have an impact, but we did see a reduction in our CAT2s. So we have kept the new device. All ICUs, so all 5 ICUs across LGI and Jimmy's now use these clear, transparent fixators. And we've recognised the success of the CAT2 reduction and shared with the teams widely. Next slide, please. So here is a bar chart. So you will see this is specifically for J821. From May till September, we had none. And then we had a huge, well, looked huge on the graph, but a huge rise in J821s from kind of the winter period. And then we started this kind of like January, February time. And since March to current date, we've had no CAT2 to patients' nostrils on J821. And the top right picture is the device that we've used. It comes in adult size and a ped size as well. Next slide, please. So what went well? So we had good communication on the new fixators, and we kind of declared our kind of work and findings via Perfect Ward. The change has been received really well. The staff like the product. It's easy to apply, take off and change. We did big push at TBN focus weeks in quick care, big education drives and bedside teaching. We have a huddle every day on in quick care, and it was mentioned our huddle information giving, and ultimately patient harms were reduced, and we just hope that the enthusiasm will continue. I think I've got one more slide. Yeah, and what we would do differently. So we initially set up a QR code to evaluate the staff's kind of use and feel of the new fixator, but the uptake was it was poor and tricky to gauge. So we ended up having to do face-to-face feedback verbally with staff, but next time we'd push for a QR code. So we've got some documented improvement evaluations there. We did have more engagement from the band 6s and the 7s, but we would push next time to empower all bands to be involved in the project. And we're letting that small changes have a big outcome for our patients, and we've reduced our harms. And then the next steps, I know there's a ped size fixator, so it's an opportunity to link in with other CSUs to share our work and the approach we made, and can we take this kind of work to another patient harm to reduce again. Thank you. That's me.
Louisa, thank you. NG Gemba, love the principle there.
Thank you.
Madupe, you're on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Modupe Hector Goma. I co-chair the Black and Minority Ethnic Staff Network. My presentation is based on a piece of work that we did around decluttering our staff network account. Next slide, please. So what was the problem? A bit of context. Staff networks are mostly run by staff on a voluntary basis on top of their substantive roles, which means with pressure on services, there is little or no time for the network, which was no surprise that the account was littered with documents from 2016 when it started, and finding any document was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. There was no standard for filing, which meant that documents that were shared with me stays in my personal account and was the same for all account holders. This was frustrating, time consuming. We had 92 folders, and we were able to identify some waste of defect inventory, over processing and waiting in the process. Next slide, please. So what did we do? Using this go, see, and ask why concept of LIM and PDSA, I held meetings with account holders to gain insight into the stress and frustration, and also for ideas on how we can make it better. I was able to suggest some LIM tools such as 5S and time observation that we can use. We also look at how improvement was going to be measured. We agreed on folders to create and the ones to keep and to get rid of. We also agreed on the documents that we're going to use for a small test of change, along with the boundaries that we will use. So we went on to carry out the small test of change, went through the folders, got rid of the waste using 5S. We timed the documents, looking for the documents before and after using the direct time observations. And after that, we realized that we were able to reduce the folders from 92 to 21. The overall time to find documents was significantly reduced from minutes to seconds. Feedback was positive from staff, and we adopted the change and we've used it on other accounts and mailboxes associated with the network. We've gone on to create the standard process document to encourage uniformity across board, agreed on the frequency of the sweep to ensure timely correction of any defect. And we're looking at scaling this up as well. Next slide, please. So what was the outcome? Yeah, like I said, number of folders was reduced by 65%. The time taken was also reduced minutes. If you see an example of number 4 there in the data we collected, from 15 minutes, 16 seconds before, it came down to 2 seconds, which was very, very significant. There was positive feedback from staff. So we've gone ahead. Yeah, and next slide, please. Yes. So what went well? The shared purpose. The shared purpose for the need to put the project at work was one of the things that went well. I had opportunity to introduce the LIM to colleagues from the community. Engagement was 100% and it was positive feedback overall. The feeling of satisfaction was the main thing, and the fact that we believe in it in a better state. Next slide, please. What would I do differently? Definitely put the time in as soon as possible to do the change. And the key learning for me was not to make assumptions, because by the time we carry out the small test of change, we realized that it wasn't as bad as we thought. And the second one was to speak up, because while I was being frustrated and other account holders, nobody said anything about doing anything about it. And for me, what I'll say is, if you're struggling with anything, just speak up about it, because you might be able to bring together like-minded people that could go on and do some improvement work. And the next steps for improvement will be to share the learning with our BME champion Leeds. And of course, if you look at the data, the before and after, there's still some documents that were taken 42 seconds. And I'll try to look at the possibility of bringing that down. And yeah, and that was it. Thank you for listening. I've just rushed through that, but yeah, it was a good experience.
Modupe, thank you for the acceleration there. I could feel you doing it. So thank you for that. 4 great presentations. Whilst you're all thinking of questions and comments, just quickly flipping through them. So Kath and team, the co-creation I absolutely love.